And then when I found out it was the psych ward, I was like, oh.
Hello and welcome to the Part-Time Gamers, the gaming podcast for people with full-time lives. I am Cyrenex, clocking in with my good friend, That One Weirdo.
Sunday! Part-time gamers, monster truck rally, Sunday!
You realize, oh man, it's pretty much since I've stopped watching like network television and stuff like that, I have not seen a commercial like that. I kind of miss those just because of how corny they are.
I'm with you 100%, but also like, especially from an age standpoint, when you look back at like how certain things used to be, like I miss stuff like, and that's our long distance dedication. I'm Casey Kasem and on with the countdown. Like, there used to be, I mean, I think that's why we love doing this, but I know a lot of the shows, podcasts, whatever that I enjoy, there's a level of showmanship where it's like, whoa, you have to kind of elevate what's there. So when you look at like those old ads about monster truck rallies, you're like, okay, how can we make this more dynamic and almost in a necessary fashion? Because you're talking about monster trucks. But then again, to narrate an ad like that, you wouldn't be doing like golf commentary like, if you come out this Sunday, you will find yourself excited when Gravedigger and Bigfoot go head to head in a monster truck rally. No. You've got to up that ante and then some. So
if your throat does not hurt by the end of that advertisement, you did it wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Did you get laryngitis? No, we're not paying you. Get.
All right, but with that, let's go ahead and jump into our water cooler talk.
You get that thing I sent you?
All right, let's go ahead and get into your article.
First of all, I have to say, I find it interesting that I found a game-related article on Sports Illustrated of all places.
Yeah.
And obviously there's sports video games. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen saw this exact same article on a couple of the sites I was looking at too. So it's not just Sports Illustrated, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, for all you gamers who don't sports ball, there's a Sports Illustrated magazine. And once upon a time, I would read a couple of issues and then use the swimsuit issue. That's all I'm going to say. No more, no less. Sorry, Mom. Yes, I have to spend 50 minutes in the bathroom. But having said that, just in time for Halloween, and obviously this is a spooky game month, but
yeah,
I am a huge fan of this movie like many people. And it's the context of like, what a cult movie should be. But Freak Zone, makers of popular indie platformers like Spectacular Sparky, that's an awesome name. That's like a porn. Our angry video game nerd are making, very excited, a Rocky Horror Picture Show video game next. Yes, that's literally like, that's one of those things where you can't help but to be like, does the article need to go further? Because I think we kind of brought it on.
Yeah.
But yes, it's going to take place and follow the exploits of Brad and Janet Slut. And for those who don't know, Rocky Horror Picture Show is a cult movie. Actually, so in its initial release, it bombed like horribly. People were like, "What is this?" And no one should be surprised. Having said that, though, obviously, many of the cast members has gone on to great success. Susan Sarandon, who was just here, is in it. She just had a birthday. She's 76. She looks great because I walked past her and I was like, "You are not." But she looks great. She just started doing conventions, and you can tell she's enjoying it, but she's a little like, okay. Now Gina Davis was there too, and there's that part of me where I'm like, oh, I mean, she still looks great, and she's very sweet. But we are getting a video game based on Richard O'Brien's rock musical that, I mean, if you talk about the epitome of what a cult classic is,
Yeah.
this is kind of it. Next to a couple other movies. And you know, it's just a little indie gamer. It's supposed to be out this year, October, obviously. I'm excited just for the fact of how do you make a video game out of this, even if it's indie, which it should be, because
Yeah.
I mean, it speaks to the heart of what it is. Now, granted, 20th Century Fox has made money hand over fist on this cult, you know, property, as it were. But you know, there's no sequel or anything like that. There never
Yeah.
should be. Like, you talk about a singular piece of cinema, this
Yeah.
is it. Not a whole lot of like full on details. I mean, there's bits and pieces, but it is more in the sense of like, you know, done in an 8-bit way. The songs are going to be done 8-bit as
Yeah.
well, so that'll be fun. And I just wonder like how the directions are going to go as far as like, you know, mash your button to the left and you
Yeah.
control it to the right.
So, oh, kind of a tangent. One of one of my friends who's a streamer, you can she has trolls that you can do on her Twitch channel. You can spend channel points to do different effects to her while she's in games and stuff like that. And one of them is it plays that song clip and forces her character to move to the left. So
Yes.
it's just funny. But
It-
I have to make an admission. I've never
seen it?
seen this movie.
Oh,
I've heard things about it, and I know that it's like I've heard that this is one of the movies that you have to watch it in theater. You have to have like the full,
Yes.
like something about throwing hot dogs or something like that. I don't know.
Yes.
But
so
there's like I've heard all this stuff like you have to watch it in theaters with with the full audience effect and everything. So it's not something you could like watch at home and get the same thing. Because I'm sure if I watched it at home or tried to watch it at home, it'd be just like, okay, what's the big deal about this? And it's like,
Yes.
but yeah, I'm sure it's the whole experience. But yeah, I have
absolutely.
not seen this.
Well, and that's how it's found its audience. Like
Yeah.
for a lot of people, and you know, especially me being somebody who loves cinema, like I love cult movies in the sense of like, and this is a perfect example, like how it found its audience. Another one is like Blade Runner and like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, where it's like, you know, you kind of go out on a limb and you make these things, and then you know, it doesn't spark the first time around. Like Blade Runner was a massive failure in
Yeah.
its initial release. Scott Pilgrim, I wouldn't say was necessarily a massive failure, but it was also a movie that if you didn't get the jokes, if you didn't read the comics and you didn't play video games and you didn't get the jokes somewhere in between, it wasn't the movie for you. And
Yeah.
now we're coming up on just made, I think, 11 years released. And me and my son went on the opening weekend. And I knew right off the bat how much I loved it. I knew it spoke to me. And I also knew it was like, yeah, I know that the fan base is already going to build and take it to that. And they did. So for this, so I saw it twice with a theater crowd. And what they do, like the hot dogs and stuff you talk about, is so you get these bags that they usually sell for like a couple bucks. And in the bags is like toast already made and then
Yeah.
like rice. So there's scenes where like when they're like a toast, then everybody pulls out the toast and throws it at the screen. And then when Janet and Brad come out of the church after getting married, you throw the rice. So it is such a low-tech immersive experience.
Yeah. It actually
And
is.
for you.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say September's in the chat right now and said that they apparently they don't really allow the hot dogs, toast, and cards and stuff like that anymore. Oh,
What?
yeah.
That why?
but-
This is
but-
why there's no fun.
It's funny though that she said that she loved that she tuned in for us saying hot dog throwing and knew exactly what we were talking about.
Yep. They didn't
So-
have hot dog throwing
yeah.
when I went. But they had like the rice and the toast, and then the what is it? The ship. You have the little kazoo, and it goes. And for the first time, when you go, and I, I'm somebody I do what I do. And I knew with it being my first time, I was with someone else at the time, and she was like, "You've never been to Rocky Horror Picture Show?" I was like, "Well, I've seen it, and I know the whole theater experience, but I've never done it." So, and previous people she had dated, she was like, "So how do you feel about wearing a dress?" I said, "Yours or mine?" She's like, "What?" I'm like, "Nothing." So I wore a dress. Wasn't my first time wearing one. And then you get the lipstick L on your head for loser to let everybody know it's your first time. And I look at that picture and I not only think of like a different time, but then I also go, man, my legs look good in that dress. Probably than it looked like with her wearing it. So, yeah, it sucks that they took all the fun away and not hand the bags and stuff anymore. But yeah,
Yeah.
welcome to 2024.
It
You
probably
know
just
of
depends on where you
somebody
go, but
Yeah. Well, this is Utah, so I mean,
Oh.
if they took it away here, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, I saw it twice at the Tower Theater, and it's freaking awesome because as the movie's going on, there's people acting it out because the Tower Theater stage and screen is pretty like it's big and it's almost like bigger than the space. So there's people like acting it out as the movie's going on. And then, a toast, and you throw the toast, and then dun 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 dun, and everybody throws rice, and then every time they go Janet, you go slow. But I'm excited for this game. I mean,
Yeah.
we talk about all the time how indie games, kind of have really started setting themselves apart. And the biggest thing for me is like, okay, how is this going to look as a video game? Because we know, movies and other IPs, but to kind of go here, like I'm almost waiting for like a Scanners David Cronenberg video game now. Like, how deep are we digging into this well?
yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, that'll be yeah, it would be interesting to see how they adapt that. Of all things, adapt that into a video game. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm excited for it. The Tower Theater is literally like 10 minutes for me.
Yeah.
I don't think the dress thing would work on me anymore. I think that's kind of a no-no.
Yeah, not yeah.
Hey, I looked good, okay?
I will take your word for it. And with that, let's go ahead and get into my article before I yeah. Oh,
Hey, sailor, want to drop anchor?
yeah. Oh, so there's been some kind of conflict with a bunch of different things, like Bethesda being dumb about Starfield and stuff like that. But I mean, there's not really a whole lot to that, like the whole Bethesda thing right now. They dropped a DLC for Starfield, which is promptly bombed because it adds maybe 5 hours of content for $30, and
Right.
like doesn't really add a whole lot to even the people who have judged it, the people who have gotten it and have positive positive why can't I not think of words, have positive reviews. That's what, why was I struggling with that word? Anyway, have positive reviews of the game or the DLC, say, yeah, it's not worth $30. So there's that whole thing, and then Bethesda being dumb about the response with all that stuff. Anyways, yes, reviews. That's the word I was trying to think of. But this article that I have right here, I thought was really interesting because it like just welcome to Shooter Bizarro World. First Fortnite goes FPS, now Halo Infinite's adding a third person mode. So I thought it was actually kind of interesting. Like, it's not surprising that Fortnite is experimenting with an FPS mode, with a first person mode. I mean, Fortnite it's a platform. It's not a game anymore. I mean, you have the traditional battle royale, you have a racing game, you have a Lego game, you have no build and build modes, and you have people can just use it and experiment with different things. It changes each, like the different mechanics change every so often and all that jazz. So for them to test out a first person mode, I'm not really surprised. From the short video that I saw, it actually looks pretty good. Has pretty good animations and stuff like that. And the prediction for that is that they'll have it as an experiment for a little while, and then they might introduce it as a bonus mode or something like that in baseline Fortnite. And if it works, that might just be like another mode alongside no build mode and everything. They might just keep it, which I think might actually be kind of cool. But but yeah, and now 343 Industries is about to release a third-person camera mode for Halo, which, mind you, is one of the first-person shooters, like one of the major ones in recent memory. That, you know, it like, especially for consoles, this is a big deal for a first-person shooter like of this caliber to experiment with a third-person mode. But unlike the Fortnite first-person mode, this does not have as good reception so far. People are not happy about the third-person mode in Halo, and I don't know. It would definitely add a different dynamic to the game.
Absolutely.
But I'm not necessarily adverse to it either, depending on how well they do it. I mean, it really just depends on the animations for the, you know, actually being able to see the animations and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. I'm not really super adverse to it like a lot of people seem to be, but I just thought it was kind of interesting, this article, how, you know, one of the biggest third-person shooters is experimenting with that first-person mode, and one of the biggest first-person shooters is experimenting with a third-person mode. And it's like relatively close to, you know, time frame. Yeah.
I'm down for it, and I love the ideal, and I get how purists can feel about this.
Yeah.
Because my son is, I mean, he's down for it, but he's also like, I mean, ever since he got into video games, like when we bought them their first video game console, like Halo was his jam.
Oh yeah.
And he has always been, I mean, we've watched the, you know, the animated stuff, which was great. The stuff on Paramount Plus exists. I don't think it was horrible, but I think there was so many things, and not just the helmet thing. Like there were so many directions. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You guys played Halo, right? You sure?
Yeah.
But I'm also somebody who, and I think you agree, like it's always kind of fun to see where, you know, games, especially kind of Hallmark games, can play with structure. And I just want to see it still feel like Halo, not feel like it's a gimmick where it's like, well, we did this to kind of give an ooh and ah factor.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, but you still slap the name Halo on it. People still expect Halo.
Yeah.
And I think if there's a game where, you know, those who know what they're doing can get it right. Because there's some games where like they'll throw that out there and like the possibility of it, and you're like, why would you do that? But this, I think, was one that could definitely really play with that idea where I think a lot of people would you know, see it differently, but still know it's like Halo. And the gimmicky side of it does exist, because you might have, I mean, obviously people who game, if you've played video games for at least a few years and you never heard of Halo, where have you been? But it also is another way to kind of introduce the same material. But it doesn't surprise me they would experiment with something like this, because it is kind of taking the narrative ideal and you know, kind of playing with it a little bit, like, hey, let's try this and what we can do then. But the expectation is still going to be a Halo game. And as long as they keep that, I think we're good.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, even with the Halo name, they've done quite a bit already with the Halo name. Like, it's not like primarily it's been known as first person shooter, but it also has the RTS side, which by all accounts has been pretty successful. and you have like the story, like the fact that Halo actually has a fairly deep lore behind it, I think is kind
Right.
of interesting. But yeah, it's just, I mean, I don't know. Like to me, it's kind of, it's just, it's not really that big a deal what view it is, because I've played first person shooters, I've played third person shooters, and yeah, the perspective is different, but it's still a shooter. And
Right.
to me, whether it's third person or not, it's still Halo. And but the thing is,
Yeah.
like, I have not played any of Halo Infinite, and like the funny thing is, the thing that I think made, if Halo Infinite had any like one thing that made like the, especially the single player, kind of
Right.
successful to any degree, is also the very same reason that I have not played it at all, which is it's open world.
Right.
It's like, I like being directed. I like knowing where I'm supposed to go. And having this open, like, as soon I played through like the first level and then got to the open world section, and it's like
So
play
much more
the,
room for activities.
yeah, play like the John Travolta from Pulp Fiction confused gif right here. And that's like, that's where my reaction to when I got to the open world section, and I was like, this is not what I want. I want to know where I'm supposed to go. I like, point me at an enemy and let me shoot him in the face. That's what I want. But
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
That's what makes those games so great. And
yeah,
it's stuff like this where I can't help but to see, especially if it's something that picks up, like, I don't know if they're working on a new one now. I think they are. And how do I not know this? Because I love that game. But like Doom, like,
yeah,
to play with structure on that one could be interesting.
yeah,
And I think part of it is, like, once again, it's the purist mentality where it's like, well, you're fundamentally changing or taking away the one thing, or one of the few things that's very specific to, okay, it's this, and this. And it's like, well, it doesn't have to be, especially when
yeah,
you are talking about kind of that open world, where it's more open world and stuff like that. Of course, the other side of it is that if you don't keep what made it as a whole, even changing, like, first person to third person, people are just going to go, oh, you're just gimmicking us up and you're just trying to take money. So it's a sticky wicket. But I
yeah,
mean, Halo is definitely one of those where I'm like, oh yeah, give that a shot. Like, definitely.
yeah. I mean, and, like, one last thing is like, as far as like the gimmick thing, it's like, well, then what's the difference between this and like between Halo 1 and Halo 2 when they, or was, I can't remember if it was Halo 1 and 2 or 2 and 3 when they introduced a dual wielding.
Yep.
It's like, what's the difference? That's a gimmick, but it worked. It worked well. Oh, it's like, I don't know. Anyway, oh, yeah. Third person Halo, first person Fortnite. And with that, let's go ahead and, all right, before we get back to work, I'd like to mention our Patreon, patreon.com/PTGcast. If you'd like to help us out with our monthly paychecks, you can go there, drop us $1, $5, $10. It all helps out, and we really do appreciate it. That is patreon.com/PTGcast. And with that, let's go ahead and get back to work.
Morning break is over. Morning break is over.
All right, it is October. It is spooky game time now. And yeah, this one that we're going to be talking about first is one that's been on my radar for a couple of years now, called Endoparasitic. I first saw this game, Markiplier played it a couple of years ago, and really interesting look to it, and really just traumatic from the get-go. So developed and published by Deeproot Interactive. It is $9.99 on Windows and Mac via Steam. It is on itch.io as well, itch.io, however you want to pronounce it. You can get it there as well for $10. So this is a top-down survival horror game, and really emphasis on the horror aspect of it, because literally the first thing that happens when you load in the game is you see your character getting 3 of his limbs ripped off by these mysterious shadowy creatures. And yeah, that's even with like the graphics in this are very simplistic. Like there's no detail on your character. You just have like the humanoid figure, and just kind of, it's all very dark colors for the most part, and it's just very vague shapes for the most part. But even then, it's like you can tell this guy is in horrible pain as he gets both his legs and his left arm ripped off at the same time, right at the start of the game. That's like first thing that happens, and yet, yeah, this is the guy that you're playing is a scientist named. I'm going to choose to pronounce that as Sinti. I'm sure it's wrong, but I will call him that. He's a scientist at this top secret research facility on an asteroid that gets overrun by these alien parasites. And I believe the creatures that you're fighting are actually mutated scientists and other like various lab creatures that were on this facility. So they're not the aliens; they're the people you used to work with that have been mutated by these alien parasites.
Yeah, you used to get coffee with Jan. Now she's ripping your limbs off.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's Jan.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if you got your quarterly reports on time, she would have been a little bit more gentle with you, but no.
And it did talk to me about my TPS report. So,
but yeah, so not only do you have 3 of your limbs ripped off, you are infected by one of these parasites. And you have to, one of the things you can get throughout the levels are these syringes of temporary vaccines that will like push the parasite back further down. Like it'll have this representation of this parasite, I'm assuming traveling up your spine, getting closer to your brain. And that represents your health is what it is. The closer it is to your brain, the closer you are to dying. Using the vaccine, like basically a health pack, moves it further back down. And so that's one of the things you're trying to find throughout the various level. And basically that's this kind of this. There is a much greater lore that you can discover throughout the game. There's notes and computer logs and stuff that you can find out about what's going on in the facility and stuff like that. But yeah, this, not only do you have that initial shock of your character having 3 of his limbs ripped off, I just wanted to kind of expand on like what I think really constitutes the elements of a horror game and how they pertain to this game. So one thing that I think is very paramount in any common horror game is fear of the unknown. So like in Phasmophobia, the way they do that, and a little bit in this as well, is the soundscape. Because right away, hearing something that you can't identify, that you can't see, immediately invokes that fear of the unknown. And that just creates that tension because it's like, okay, I think there's something there that, is this an indication that I'm in danger? That kind of, that sense, like even when you're moving around in like Phasmophobia, you step on a creaky floor. It's like, is that coming from me or is that coming from something coming towards me? That kind of fear. And that's definitely very much present in this game. You have the sounds of the creature around you and stuff like that. And you can't necessarily, there's frequently times where something you'll hear it but you won't see it right away. And actually the outer border of the screen is blacked out. It has this kind of like fog of war effect. So you have a relatively small area around you that you can see clearly. But you can still hear things around you. And that really invokes that fear of the unknown. Another thing that I think pertains very much to survival horror games is lack of resources. It's like, yeah, you could have that eerie soundscape and that fear of the unknown, but if you are decked out in ammunition and weapons, it kind of defeats the point. It doesn't really matter. When you add lack of resources to it, it just doubles down on that fear factor. It's like, okay, now do I not only not know what I'm facing, I don't know how, like, what weapon, like, what resources do I need to defeat whatever I'm about to come up against, and will I have enough for later on? So you're moving around just in this game alone, like in totality, you have very limited resources. You have limited vaccines that you'll have access to. You'll have limited ammunition. You get 4 weapons. You start off with a revolver. You go to a shotgun. You can get a flare gun, which is kind of like the big, everything must die weapon, and then you can get a crossbow. Crossbow is relatively weak, but you can. The cool thing about it is if you fire it well enough, you can get the bolts back. So it can be used a reusable resource. But everything else is, not only are they limited in the levels, you have a very, very limited inventory space.
Yep.
So it's like when you're trying to decide what am I going to take with me, it's like, okay, vaccines take this much space. The revolver bullets take a very small amount of space in your inventory. The shotgun rounds take a little bit longer and take a little bit bigger inventory space, but they're more powerful. They can one-shot most of the enemies if you're close range. But the flares can take out an entire hallway of enemies, but you can only fit like 2 of them in your inventory and nothing else. So it's like, okay, I need to figure out what is most valuable to me. And so you have that limitation as well. Those are all pretty common for a lot of different horror games. Resident Evil, comes to mind, where you have limited resources and stuff like that. One thing that they do very well in this game is they add even one more level of limited resource, and that is the actions you can take. So in this game, you can only do one thing at a time, because you have to use like in a lot of other games, you can still move and reload or move and fire and stuff like that. A lot of movement and stuff like this. No, you have to choose whether, like, because you have to move by using your arm.
Yep.
So you're reaching out, dragging yourself with your one arm, and then you have to stop. And it's like, okay, I'm about to get attacked. I need to pull out my gun and fire at it. You can't move while you're doing that, and you can't reload while moving or anything like that. So that action commodity, I think, is a really interesting way of going one step further with that limited resources aspect of the game. I thought that was a really, really cool way of doing it. Of adding to that limited resource part. I mean, and then there's all kinds of different. There's stealth elements to it, which that's one place that the crossbow really excels, because it doesn't create a lot of noise, so you can use it in stealth aspects of the game. But yeah, you have, like I said, you have the revolver, which can hold the most ammo, but is also the weakest of the 3 weapons, the 3 primary weapons. So it's like, it takes like 2 or 3 shots to take down something, or 1 shot of a shotgun. So you really need, there's a lot of opportunity costs in this game. And I love that. And that really adds to the tension. I mean, there's like I said, I saw this came to, I first saw this when Markiplier played it a couple of years ago, and just the frantic nature of it. Because again, you need to decide, do I move or do I shoot? And it's like, okay, is now a good time to reload? Because I can't reload and move at the same time. So I need, like, I think it's really interesting with that mechanic as well.
Oh, absolutely. And, I love that you picked a game that will make everyone get more anti-anxiety medication.
Oh, yeah.
And especially like when I first, so little preface, I knew nothing about this game until it was like, oh, okay, this is what we're going to do. So I grew up, like some of us, there were a lot of horror games. Silent Hill was one of them, but there are certain games, and I think Resident Evil, like the early ones, but you used to be able to have like light or a candle, but it would only shine in a certain range. It wouldn't actually light up the room. So a lot of it was, like you said, kind of that fog aspect where you know something's going on in the space that you can't see.
Yeah.
And with that, there is, I mean, that's what makes horror so great. Like, I think we're all just, I mean, fundamentally, something we don't understand, see, or just be able to grasp is automatically just terrifying. Especially when it's like an aftermath and it literally starts. I mean, this game starts with almost like a spoiler alert. Like, hey, you know that whole limb thing you were attached to, pun intended.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose that. But it also sets up kind of the mentality of what you're in for. Like, as playing it for the first time, that happened and I went, oh, wait, do I play or do I turn it off? Like, did I get to the end and nobody told me? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm slow, but I'm like, wait, what happened? And I think what adds also to the other side of it is, like you said, being able or not being able to do much at once. You know, it doesn't take the ideal of like, well, if you were missing limbs and you had to crawl to be able to kind of like save yourself and stuff, like how would that work? And you know, in some games, it's the mentality of, oh, you can do this, you can do that, because you can't do this. But if you really apply to like what that situation might be like, not necessarily looking for realism, but it's like, yeah, how much could you do per action? Very little.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing that's kind of interesting, like there is, like I said, there is lore elements behind this as well. Like you find out like this game does not end well for your character. So it's a little bit of,
Spoilers!
yeah, a little bit of a spoiler. I mean, this game's been out for a while. And so, and another reason why I wanted to talk about this game as well is because was today's the 6th of October that we're recording right now. October 1st, Endoparasitic 2 came out, which picks up 3 months after the end of this game. And so it goes even further into the lore and everything like that. But like, it does not end well for anyone. So a little bit of a spoiler, some spoilers for this. You get to the end, like you're trying to make your way to the like a life ship to get off this asteroid, to get away from the facility and everything. But it's like I think it's your like assistant. Was actually the person who released the aliens into the facility in the first place, and has basically become like the alien parasite's chosen host. And she's the one, she locks you in the facility, and she's the one that takes the ship off the asteroid intended to head to Earth. So, I'm not entirely sure like where exactly this is going to go in the second one, because again, it starts with you back in the facility 3 months later. And I don't know, like from that point, I don't know if he like actually does at some point get off the asteroid and what happens then. I don't know. But yeah, it's like, so you're left for dead on this asteroid with a bunch of other alien parasites, including the one that's still trying to kill you. And Earth could potentially be destroyed in however long it takes for that ship to get to Earth.
So no pressure.
Yeah. No
pressure.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, it's this. I like the fact that this game focuses on those that like fear the unknown and fear and the limited resources. Because another thing you could do for horror games and for by extension horror movies is body horror. That's one of the reasons why like zombies and stuff like that are such a like my one streamer friend hates zombies because it's mostly body horror, and you just can't stand that. And I agree. It's like I don't like gore that much. So I like the fact that with these visuals, it's it's very pixelated. It's very vague shapes, like I mentioned. Um, and like the worst body horror, quote unquote, that you see is his limbs getting ripped off. But even then, it's like, oh, they're just pulling the JPEG apart.
Yep.
That's about the extent of the gore. Oh, and some pixelated splotches of red on the ground. Oh, but overall, this definitely has I think it's a very successful horror game with those elements. Um, I haven't actually gotten a chance to play it yet, but the only control that you have is the mouse. So
Right.
I'd have to see like how exactly that works, because you're controlling the hand and that's basically all you're doing.
That's all you
So
got.
yeah, so you have to like move the mouse to grab the ground, move yourself that way and everything, and like turn your arm around and pick up the gun from your back and everything like that. So
Right.
there's also, I did find out that there is an endoparasitic VR. So like the thing is, like, they show the trailer for the VR and it's like almost shot for shot exactly like the trailer for the 2D version. So it starts off, you're in VR getting 3 of your limbs cut off.
Now it's a party.
Oh, I don't want to do that. It's enough that I'm going to be playing Phasmophobia in VR at the end of the month. Oh, I don't want, like, I'm good. Oh,
I'm excited now. You got me with the VR. I'm like,
uh,
go on. Well,
yeah,
and I think that's why, I mean, it's funny how this movie is, this game is fairly, same smell, different flavor.
yeah,
Um, this game is very, and like you said, minimalistic
yeah,
in a lot of ways, where it's very, it's very dialed into just what it looks like in this situation, and I just love that. Um, it kind of plays with that, like almost in the sense of like foreboding, almost like a little bit of like claustrophobia. Because I mean, in that type of situation, it's like, okay, who knows what's going to happen next?
yeah,
Let alone just the ideal of what goes on behind what you can't see. And I'm one of those. I mean, I don't like torture porn horror movies because it's funny how people are like, well, it's a creative kill, and it's like, yeah, but you don't have to show the kill.
yeah,
It's what you don't see, and your brain has to interpret.
yeah,
And I think for me, and I think I've mentioned it before, but probably I'd say overall my favorite, what I consider favorite horror movie, is Seven, and then like Silence of the Lambs. And you look at those movies, and it's like everyone's like, oh, so violent, oh, so gory. Actually, they're not. What makes those movies stand up so well is what you don't see, and a lot of your brain has to interpret
yeah,
after the fact. And
yeah,
there's definitely that element going on here. And once again, like the old school horror games were like the flashlight will only go to this spot and here. So you're looking at things, but there's so much going on around you, and it's like, okay, first of all, got to change my pants. And two, what was that? So,
yeah,
and I think that's what's such a great aspect of, I mean, anything within the horror genre is you know something's there. It knows you're there. You can't see it. It probably can see you. And at some point, it's like kind of like that going into a corner, like how far do you follow someone into a corner where you run into them? It's just a
yeah,
question of when. Um, but yeah, this cheery game, and it's sunshine and lollipops, and no, it's one of those that really kind of plays on the nerves a little bit, and
yeah,
that minimalistic
yeah,
stylization just executes that so well.
yeah. The fact that they're able to do that with such a minimalistic, oh, style of art style and everything, I think is very impressive. I think that's the most impressive part. It makes it, again, so it's much more psychological tension rather than just gore. Uh, so I think it succeeded very well in that aspect. And yeah, it's also like from what I recall from the Markiplier videos, it's not easy. There are some elements to it that are just frantic. Like again, you get attacked by things from off screen that
Right.
you can hear, so you have a little bit of warning, but you need to think fast. It's like, okay, am I going? What weapon am I going to grab? Am I going to try and move? Am I going to, that kind of thing? I'll try to, get out of that situation. So overall, I think and it's $10. It's
Yeah.
not that much.
Worth every nickel.
Yeah, I have not seen how long it takes to play it, but I can't imagine it's very long. Oh, let's see if I can pull this up real quick, like how long it takes to play.
I think it's like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I'm seeing here. Oh, like main and extras, like a completionist run. I'm seeing about just over 6 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, about 3 hours for the first run, and yeah, so it doesn't take that long to play through it.
No.
Again, the fact that it's a $10 game, you're in that respect, you kind of get what you pay for. But it's definitely very psychological, very good for, and like I said, because it's such a short game, it's great for part-time gaming. You can even segment it up. I think there's chapters in it and everything, like different ways of segmenting up the game. So you can go in, do a little bit, get back out. Whether or not you have the lights on or off after that is up to you. But yeah. So overall, I think that's a good game. And like I said, Endoparasitic 2 just came out, continues the story. I'm actually kind of interested in seeing where the story goes from there. I'll have to see if there's someone who's already done a stream or two of the game. But yeah. So that's the beginning.
It's a good time.
Yeah, that's the beginning of our spooky game month. And
No Doki Doki.
yeah, we've already talked about it, and there's nothing new on it, so we don't have to go back to it, at least for now. That's right.
Because my Depends budget is like skyrocketing with it being horror month. So
if there's any one person I want to see play that game, it's Scott Johnson. I want to see him try to get through that game.
it's so bizarre, and it plays. It kind of plays with your senses. This game we just reviewed, and I love that it is minimalistic, but also it's very dialed into the situation. Like it grabs your attention, and to be able to do that in a way that you're not throwing a bunch of money at to where it fails. It's Suicide Squad. Sorry. No, I think it just speaks to when you craft a game and your audience. It works well, and I'm definitely excited to see what the second one is like, because narratively it's like, wait, ripped off lambs, you're kind of just stumping about, like, how do you? So even that too, like, to be able to build on that. And October, I love Halloween.
Yeah.
But no Doki Doki. Yeah, it's like, hey, let's do scary games, but not the really scary games.
Well, we're kind of starting off, like, again, because of the minimalistic graphics and everything, we're kind of starting off in the least kind of intense, strangely enough, at least graphically. Definitely still intense.
Then in the far end, we'll just go like full, like, just guano crazy. The horror game of all horror game, Star Fox 64. No, I'm just kidding. That's terrifying to think that a fox is flying a ship.
I mean, well, also when you think about like the lore behind why all of them have robotic legs.
Yes.
Yeah. Like the theory behind that. It's like,
oh yeah,
that's great. Yeah. Anyway, we're getting into Tangent Town now, so I think that's a good place to land this ship.
What?
Yeah. All right, everyone. If you like what you've heard and like to help us out, a couple ways you can do that is you can give us a review over on Apple Podcast. You can follow my Twitch and or YouTube channels for our live recordings Sunday nights starting at 9:15 Eastern Standard Time. or you can become one of our patrons at patreon.com/ptgcast. And I'd like to thank our newest patron, Jessica Hart. We're probably going to have her
Thank you.
on next month. I have a game in mind that I want to bring her back on the show for. You've heard her here a couple times, and she decided to help us out with our paychecks this month. So thank you very much, Jess.
Mr. Steve appreciates it.
Yep. All right. If you'd like to contact us, you can with our email, parttimegamers.cast@gmail.com, or you can join our Discord channel. Everyone, thank you for listening. Join us next week. I'm really glad for our discussion next week, because this is a game that I've wanted to experience for almost a decade. We're going to be talking about the PC release of Until Dawn, which is like when you think of supermassive games, this is pretty much one of the biggest games you think about for them is Until Dawn. It's kind of the one that this was the genesis of the Dark Pictures anthology. So they finally, literally like 2 days ago, have a release of this on PC. From the reviews I've seen, there's a couple issues for the PC version, but hopefully we'll get a couple patch in maybe. But regardless, I'd like to talk about the story and everything like that about this game. Been wanting to play it for a while. Anyways, I'm Sean. You can find this show and the rest of my works and links to my socials, including our Discord channel, my Twitch and YouTube channels, and the Apple Podcast listing, using the link bit.ly/CI Productions. You can find all the Ember's work over at 9of12.com as NINEOF12.com. Theo, where can people find you around the internet?
No, don't go to rotten.com. That would be bad. Actually, I don't even know if that site's still up. I can be found at rabbitandredradio.com. We just started back with a couple of new episodes. We have one coming up. I think it's Saturday. And we've kind of been playing off of like things we like. So last show, my co-host, I found out he had never seen The Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay.
And I was like, dude, how do I know you? Because like we reference Scorsese a great deal. And it is literally one of those things where it's like, how do you miss that one? So he finally saw it. And I think this is going to be a good one as far as episodes go, because I can tell he's got a lot to say on the movie. He just wants to wait to do it on the show. Yeah. So we're going to be doing that one on Saturday, and I want to say it's 7:00 Eastern time. Also, real quick, Until Dawn is a movie that they just finished filming principal photography on.
Really?
Yes. It literally just a day ago they capped off principal photography.
I'm wondering how they're going to do that, though, because one of the biggest aspects of the game is, you know, the whole butterfly effect, like how your choices affect things later on. Huh.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. That'll be interesting to see. All right. But until next time, we are the Part-Time Gamers, going to the correct slide before I transition, and clocking out.